G'day everyone, welcome to Roo Hammer, Season 3, Episode 6. And this is our second of our Nrlw breakdown shows, dedicated entirely to the Nrlw season.
That's right, mate. It is in 7:30 your time, or Queensland time, 8:30 Sydney time, and I think it'd be 10:30 New Zealand time. We'll be live for just a quick recap of the Nrlw round. Good evening to everyone that's tuned in to watch us. TK, you're always there supporting, brother. Champion.
Love you, TK. You're a legend.
He is, isn't he?
Yep.
Mum says good evening. Please be careful in this weather.
Crazy
be very
weather.
Careful.
You're getting
mate,
some of the weather that we had. Yeah.
Just quickly on that, it's just ridiculous down here in Sydney at the moment. There's where I live in Chipping Norton, a good chunk of the suburb is underwater. Georges River's broken its banks. Luckily for me, where I am, I'm on high ground, so it hasn't really affected me, except for trying to get to work is probably the hardest thing. And I think it's fitting, mate, too. I must say that we're doing our Nrl breakdown show about the Women's Rugby League today on Women's Day. So shout out to all the women out there. Hope you've had a great International Women's Day.
Absolutely. Yeah, round 2, another triple header. This time is down at Win Stadium in Wollongong, and a crowd of over 2,100 people braved the atrocious weather conditions again to support the Nrlw. And mate, you were there as part of the crowd. Hammer, what did you think of the turnout?
Yeah, mate, it was good. Hang on, mate, everything's just gone haywire in front of me. The weather definitely would had an impact on the crowd. I drove down from Sydney with my mate Jai. Shout out to Jai, and we had a rain. We had rain way down. It did ease. Sorry, for the first 2 games. They were played in pretty dry conditions. Like the field was wet, but there was no actual rainfall. But that final game between the Dragons and the Eels, that was some of the worst conditions I've ever encountered at a rugby league game. It reminded me of, remember that Sharks game a couple of seasons ago? I think it was the Sharks Rabbits, was it, or Sharks Melbourne?
There's been a couple. There's one at the Gold Coast. There was one over in Perth where it was like a swimming pool.
The one at the Sharks game, they had a whole heap of the crowd turn up in wetsuits with snorkels and flippers and hats off to those girls that played in those fucking conditions. It was shocking.
Yeah, well, mate, let's go and have a look at the results, the round 2 fixtures. And the first game was played between the Broncos and the Newcastle Knights. We'll just bring up some of the graphics here for you.
Yep.
So the Broncos 28 tries to Boyle, Upton, Chisolka, Mosby, and Turner, and Brown kicking 4 goals from 5 attempts. And Knights 12. Federica and Fassad tries, and Poco 2 from 2. The Broncos did have a late change to their run-on side, with Caitlin Phillips starting at lock and Sarah Saltio moving back to the bench. For the Knights, Caitlin Johnson was ruled out, and Mato Ferratika came in to the front row, and Phoebe Desmond dropping off the bench, with Tokoruru Ruka coming onto the bench.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, a couple of changes. The Broncos had a pretty early advantage in this game too, with their hooker Lauren Brown. She used to be a centre. She was actually a state of origin centre for the Maroons last year. Now playing at hooker, to 40-30 on tackle 3. It's only the second ever in the history of the NRLW comp. Unfortunately for the Broncos, they weren't able to take advantage of the field position due to a handling. Turned the ball over to the Knights. Knights were first across the line, but they had that try denied via obstruction. But it was a real shift of the ball to their right side that found space on the edge. The young winger for the Broncos, Mosby, Jen on Romy Teetsel, they got the ball away, and it's surprised the Knights didn't go there more often after they identified that that's how Mosby was going to defend. It did make the Broncos kind of shift into that game mode mentality. And from there, it was all a masterclass. Strong running up the middle, had the Broncos advancing upfield. Millie Boyle unstoppable, close to the post. She scored the first try. Mate, I'm in awe of her. She's just a supreme athlete. Absolutely amazing. The Broncos back straight away with a great ball from Upton to Chisolka into a hole. And then she drew Romy Teetsall, the fullback for the Knights, and passed back on the inside to Upton to score. And Broncos went into halftime with a pretty comfortable 12-0 lead.
Yeah, best on ground for the Knights in that first half was definitely Annette Nuasala with some really strong defence in the middle. Unfortunately, though, for the Knights, the Broncos were finding space on the edges, and they have that advantage for most of these girls who have got that cohesion. They've played a few seasons now with the Broncos and for Queensland, and also in the domestic competition up here in Queensland. So they had a lot of continuity and cohesion in their side. And they showed why they're the competition favourites. Again, using great ball movement down the side, between Upton and Chisolka. And this time, Sinead Chisolka scoring next to the posts, and then Mosby then scored on the left side. And look, that just took the wind out of the Knights' sail, I think.
Mate, the Knights were very similar to what the Titans were last week. They had a very poor completion rate. Up to that point in the game, I remember looking on the stats at the time, and it was only 48%. Which, pretty much made the Knights their own worst enemy. They finally got on the scoreboard after earning a repeat set, and some great pressure from Crystal Roy to jump half, and she turned the ball back on the inside to Mato Federica, who scored barging over the line. And then the Knights backed it up with a great individual long-range try to Jamie Frassard, who showed great speed and really good fast footwork, get herself into space, and then surprisingly, had the legs to go on with it. Did get chased down, but still managed to score the try. But the Broncos closed it out with a try to Amy Turner from a scrum play, and that Broncos machine, mate, just rolling on, seeing themselves as the team to beat in this competition.
They certainly do, mate. And looking at the stats from this game, both teams with relatively poor completion rates. The Broncos 64% completing 24 from 37. The Knights will definitely need to work on that aspect of their game this week, though. With just 54% completion, 18-33, it's not going to win you a match, really. And
no,
all the stats in favour of the Broncos: 1,440 run meters to the Knights. 1,131, and it was 7 line breaks to 3 and 160 kick meters just 60 from the Knights. So that tells you a bit of the story there.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah. And just a couple of the standout performers. Millie Boyle again, absolutely outstanding. She had 18 hit ups for 193 meters, 60 post contact meters, 3 tackle breaks, a line break, 18 tackles and a try. Tamika Upton at the back, 123 run meters, 10 tackle breaks, 10 tackle breaks. That's awesome. 2 line breaks, a try assist, 2 line break assists, and she herself try. And for the Knights, mate, Annette Nuasala, really good tackles in the middle. She was the best for the 13 hit ups and 127 meters. And Jamie Frassard, 144 meters, 21 post contact, 4 tackle breaks. Proving a real handful in the centres. Really needs to get a little bit more early ball, I think, for Jamie.
Yes, that would be handy. Now, let's move on to Game 2, played between the Roosters and the Titans. And this was a maiden win for the Titans in the Nrlw competition, so well done to them. The Titans 26. B. Brayley Nartai with a double. Peters. Karina Brown getting her first try in the NRLW. After a number of seasons. So that's a great get the monkey off her back there. And
absolutely.
Tasman Gray with a barnstorming try there. Canfield 2 from 3, and Kay Brayley Nartai 1 from 1, and Shania Power missed with her only attempt, beating the Roosters 16, Tafuga, Togatuki, and Kernick with the tries, and Southwell 2 from 3, including a sensational sideline conversion. A bit of a reshuffle with the Roosters lineup, though, before kickoff, with Yasmin Meeks moving from the back row to a customary wing position and Claire Reid dropping out of the lineup. And this forced Sarah Togatuki from the front row to the back row. And Māori All-Stars Maya Hill-Mawana came into the front row. And for the Titans, the only change was Bree Clark dropping off the bench. Her place taken by April Nakapatuna. in her NRLW debut.
Yeah, I was surprised Brie Clark dropped off the bench. I thought goal kicking alone would have got her into that Titans side for this week. They did unearth another forward goal kicker with Zara Canfield there playing in the second row and kicking goals. So they do like a forward goal kicker up there at the Titans. And Jay Harris said there was a great win by the Titans. It was a great win by the Titans. It was a completely different Titans team in terms of added the team to the team that we saw from last week. Last week they had an awful completion rate. They came out with real purpose, putting pressure on the Roosters and earning cheap turnover of possession early in the game. Strong running from Destiny Brill, set up great field position and a bat on play from Ivania Peliti, to Jasmine Peters, who used great strength to reach out and score, despite being held by 3 Roosters defenders. And Brittany Brayley Nardi starting to get back to some of her best form, playing some of her best footy, produced a great solo run up the middle, which set up field position once again. And as he said, a deft kick into the in goal from Grace Griffin and our good mate Karina Brown. First to the ball for the Titans for a 10-0 lead. And as you said, mate, amazingly, that was Goosey's first ever NRLW try, coming in her 13th appearance in her 4th season. So, she was pretty chuffed with that one.
I found that hard to believe. She's scored so many times for Queensland and Australia, but yet to cross the stripe for the NRLW. So there you go. That's great for her, as I said, to get the monkey off the back. I think there's so many ex-Warriors in this Titans team. It was true Warriors form that the Titans made a mistake. The set after the points with a poor kick out on the full, and it gifted the Roosters a set started right inside the Titans half, and they capitalised immediately with the try in the right corner to Leanne Tafuga, and absolutely sensational sideline conversion from Hannah Southwell. She just kicked it into the breeze. The breeze took it back around between the posts. It was just like, as Blocker Roach said in the commentary, like shelling peas. It was.
There he's gone. Is that where Blocker Roach is? Right, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was in the commentary for that game. So
a little bit. You'll be at Sunshine Coast this weekend, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. He got it in his calendar nice and early. The Roosters, though, with a mistake from the kickoff, and then the Titans straight back onto the attack, and they hit back straight away with the barnstorming Tasman Gray on the left edge, and she was brutal with her edge running all through the first half, and over half of her running meters came in post-contact meters. Such a powerhouse.
She is, mate. And for me, she's like that barometer for that Titans team. If Taz Gray is on and playing well, then the Titans are going to be hard to beat. She's like the forward leader of that pack, and the girls really feed off her intensity. The Titans were definitely the better of the two teams in terms of intensity and energy and pressure. For the Roosters, I thought Steve McGregor had a really good kicking game, pinning Vani Peliti into a corner. But her kicks lacked any real defensive pressure. There was not a lot of good kick chase from the Roosters. And the Titans were able to get out of their red zone pretty easily. And Vani's really growing in that role of a playmaking number one with the long passing game, creating opportunities for the Titans. She tried it quite a few times on the weekend with great success. And our good friend Georgia Hale and Shania Power, but I thought they provided great impact off the bench. Shania Power with a strong running, and Georgia just tied in around that ruck area with her defence. Which what you want from your bench players too. You want them to have an impact. The Roosters had too many mistakes in their game, and it was highlighted in the second half when they turned over cheap possession on their own line, and Brittany Brayley Nardi scored under the posts. The Roosters did manage to hold the ball and complete some sets, and their right edge defence forced an error, allowing Sarah Togatuki first to score under the posts. And then shortly afterwards, Olivia Kernick crossed for her second try in 2 weeks on the right edge, and a pretty easy try, to be honest. She just really waltzed through some really poor defence, and that's something that Coach Jamie Feeney of the Titans will be wanting to address this week at training, because it set up a real stand finish for that final 3 minutes. A late try to Brittany Brayley Nardi, her second for the game, secured the win for the Titans, and a really good win for the Titans. But when you look at the game stats in this game, the Roosters really had no right to be in the game at the end of the game. Like they only had 41% possession, compared to the Titans 59, and it's something the Titans will want to work on. Like you take the 2 points when they give it when you earn them, but they'll really need to build on this, especially going into a game against the Eels this week.
Yeah, definitely, mate. And the Titans improved dramatically on their poor completion rate from last week. They completed 74% this week with 29 of 39 sets. And The Roosters, they still look a little bit unsettled, and it shows with the completion rate again of only 54% with 18 of 31. The Titans with 1,183 run meters compared to the Roosters 1,003, but it was the Titans' 43 tackle breaks to the Roosters 15 that had the Roosters under the most pressure for the game. The Roosters with a massive 43 tackles, 14 errors and 8 penalties conceded gave themselves, virtually no chance of winning. And in fact, the fact that they were even still in the contest at the end of the game should be a warning to other teams that once they click, they're going to be a tough team to beat.
Absolutely, they will be. They have too many stars in their team to be wallowing at the bottom of the ladder. And Court is back this week, which we'll look at a little bit later when we go through the team list. So you'll see a Roosters team with a lot more direction this week. They're just looking to their 2 big stars, Sergis and Kelly, to try to create stuff for them all the time. And with Corby Baxter there, they'll have a little bit more direction. Standout performers in this game, mate, as we said before, Tasman Gray, 16 runs, 123 run meters, 55 post contact, 4 tackle breaks, 9 break try. Destiny Brill played hooker in the Origin last year, playing at lock for the Gold Coast Titans. Is pretty much putting a hand up as a must-have in the team. Her runs were quite damaging. Her 118 meters were like really meters, 48 post contact, 25 tackles. She also had 2 strips of the ball during the game as well, and 6 tackle breaks. And then Varney at the back, 141 meters, 50 of them post contact meters, 6 tackle breaks and the line assist. For the Roosters, Bridie Parker, who's been filling in at fullback for the last 2 weeks, been doing a wonderful job there. She's 11 runs for 146 meters, 2 tackle breaks and the line break. And Olivia Koenig, the other one, scored a second try this week in 2 games. So, she's up on the leaderboard there, but a massive 37 tackles, which is a massive amount of work to be getting through on an edge. That's not in the middle, on an edge. So that's where the Titans were directing a lot of their play.
Yeah, exactly right. Huge numbers there. And that brings us to the final round. Much anticipated game this week, the Dragons versus the Eels. A few ex-Dragons in the Eels lineup was always going to make this one a bit spicy and with a lot of feeling. And played, as you said before, mate, in absolutely appalling conditions. So the Dragons came away with a 10-0 victory. Dragons 10 points all came from Pearson with a try and 3 goals from 3 attempts. To the Eels 0. And a couple of changes to the Dragons before the kickoff. Jamie Chapman, Talai Holmes, and Kezi Apps, they were all ruled out. And Keely Brown came into the centres, and there was a reshuffle in the forwards with Quincy Dodd starting at hooker, Keely Davis moving to lock, Holly Wheeler moving to an edge, and Alti Sagano coming onto the front row. And for the Eels, the only change was Therese Ayton ruled out and Ellie Johnston coming onto the bench.
Yeah, Therese Ayton ruled out with that massive shot that she copped last week. Bit of infection on the eye. Mate, for me, undoubtedly, this was going to be the game of the round for me. The weather had other ideas. And although it was played in pretty atrocious conditions, the ball handling relatively good from both teams. The Dragons with all the possession in the opening 10 minutes, the Eels to get out of their own half. Elsie Albert took it upon herself to be that leader of the pack for the Dragons. With Kezi Apps not being there, and she carried the ball strong and tackled really well with a lot of energy. Dragons got the first try to Rachel Pearson from an Eels knock on and on their own line, surprisingly to be the only try scored in the match. And the Eels did find their way back into the contest with some stiff defence and some great... the defence of both teams was pretty brutal. Some big hits from both sides. One thing I did notice in the Dragons play was they're very left side dominant when they've got the ball. They did everything down their left side. So all their attack was focused down that left side of the field. And the Eels were able to adjust and defend it quite easily as the game went on. I'd find, the drag work to the left, then they come back to the middle of the field, work it to the post, and then the shift straight back to the left. And their right side saw very little ball.
Yeah, it's definitely something that Jamie Soward will need to address this week. Need to have a look at that for sure. The worst of the weather, though, came in that second half, and it really had an impact on the handling for both teams, as you can imagine. It was just appalling conditions up there with the worst I've seen for a game of footy. There was a lot of drop ball, incomplete sets, and you could see that it was just uncomfortable for those girls out there in the middle. And 15 minutes to go, Cody House nearly put the Dragons up by 2 tries, but Bovetti Walsh was able to knock the ball loose as House tried to ground the ball in a great try-saving play there. But the rain just got harder. Even watching it on TV, you could just see it. It was absolutely bucketing down. And the Dragons got a penalty right in front, and they made the smart decision, the most logical decision, to take the 2 and put it out to an 8-point lead. And then another penalty not long after, and again, penalty shot right in front, and for another 2 points for a 10-point lead, and which was the final result. And, obviously full credit to both teams, because that's the worst conditions I've ever seen, as I said before, to play a game of footy.
Yep.
Eels last week became the first team to kick a field goal in the NRLW, and this week they have the distinction of the first team being kept scoreless in a game. So interesting there.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, just a couple of comments through. Jay Harris said he really enjoyed the defensive battle in this one. Jack Kelly said the Titans are going to go far in this competition, and he reckons Pearson, number 7 for New South Wales. It's an early call from Jack. I've still got my money on Matty Studd.
I was going to say Matty. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, mate. Game stats in this one.
Yeah. So both teams could have been excused for poor completion rate, obviously with the conditions that it was played in. But both teams completed quite well. And the Dragons 63%, so 23 of 36. And the Eels 68%, 24 of 35. And the run meters for the Dragons was the only stat that they were better than the Eels in, amazingly, with 1,353 compared to the Eels 1,080. The Eels are 20 tackle breaks to 14, 2 line breaks to 0, and 270 tackles to the Dragons. 260 kept them in the contest. So the Eels, they should be pretty happy with efforts there, despite the loss. They still put together a few nice plays at the end there. They kept the ball alive, and it was only some desperate defence that stopped them from scoring in the last 15 minutes there.
Yeah, I think the biggest weapon that the Eels have, apart from Samai Matalfa at the back there, is that they're playing lock, is Maddie Studden's kicking game, and the weather really nullified that for the Eels. She still kicked for like 260 something meters, but when the ball was hitting the ground, it wasn't rolling on; it was stopping dead. So it kind of nullified what she was trying to do with that ball. So get her on a dry track. Maddie Studden's kicking game, I think, becomes a real weapon for the Eels. Any news about the biting incident? Yeah, we'll get to that, mate. When she's been given it. She took the early guilty plea. Maddie took the early guilty plea, so she's named to play this week, but obviously she'll be playing. Let's look at the standout performance for this game. Firstly, the Dragons. Elsie Albert, 14 hit ups, 159 meters, 62 post contact, 3 tackles. Really, took it upon herself to be that forward dominant leader for the Dragons in the absence of Captain Kezi Apps. Shaylee Bent on an edge, 128 meters, 54 post contact meters, 29 tackles, and Emma Tonagato, the Aussie Sevens rugby star, converting to rugby league, playing at fullback for the Dragons, 1644 meters, 64 post-contact meters, 2 tackle breaks. And for the Eels, we have Botil Vetti Walsh, 15 runs, 145 meters, 60 post-contact meters, 3 tackle breaks. Kennedy Cherrington, 17 hit-ups, 21 meters, 52 post-contact and 25 tackles. And then Samai Matal, their captain, 14 hit, 116 meters, 51 post-contact. Nearly half of meters were post-contact meters and 5 tackle breaks. Absolutely huge.
Absolutely, mate. And so the reigning premiers, look, they're laying down the challenge, and it's their long-time rivals, the Roosters, who are still bottom of the ladder after 2 rounds. So if we have a look at the ladder, the Broncos on top with 4 points, Dragons second also on 4 points, just behind on for and against. Titans in third place with 2 points, Eels fourth on 2 points, and then followed by the Knights and the Roosters yet to get a win each. Leading try scorers, Tegan Berry with 2, Emily Bass with 2, Millie Boyle with 2, Brittany Brayley-Nartai with 2, Olivia Koenig with 2. And leading point scorers, Rachel Pearson, 16 points, Lauren Brown, 12 points.
Mate, just a couple of the Kirch has jumped on. He says, guys, I can't get enough of all 3 NRLW matches over the first 2 rounds. I've been really enjoying the creativity and attack in the side. What do you two like the most about the women's game? For me, it's the lack of the wrestle. It's just a pure form of the game. There's none of that bullshit wrestle. The hits, I think, are bigger as well. It's the skill level is really improving. I can remember watching Origin. I think it might have been 3 years ago, and I thought then that the skill level was good. And then 2 years ago, there was that Origin game where Kira Dibb threw that beautiful cutout ball to Surges to score in the corner, and then I sat up and I thought, oh yeah, the skill level's getting better and better. But you watch these games of footy, and these women are just so talented. Their skill level is second to none, and you got to remember that they're doing it all part time. They're not full time athletes. They're still jobs, and it's hats off to them. They're doing a fantastic job. It's a great spectacle to watch, and it's something that you and I are very passionate about, mate.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they're all doing it for the love of the game, and I just love the passion involved in it. And as you said, the hits. Some of those hits are bone rattling.
We'll get into. Let's look at the teams and the changes for round 3. This week, the NRL are the curtain raisers for the NRLW games. Are the curtain raisers for the NRL games. So the girls finally playing in front of their home fans. The first game at 12:50 p.m. on Saturday, 12th of March at the Sydney Cricket Ground is the Roosters versus Knights. It's before the Roosters versus Knights NRL game. So this will be something that both these two women's sides will be really chuffed to do, actually, be playing before their male counterparts. Do you want to go through the team list, mate?
Yeah, mate. In a must-win game for the Roosters, they line up as Baxter, Tafuga, Surgis, Kelly, Parker, Kelleher, McGregor, Togatuki, Higgins, Prederin, Meeks, Koenig, Southwell, and on the bench we have Tamara, Joseph, Hilmoana, and Kapani. And for the Knights, Tietzel, Vahakolo, Frassard, Law, Green, Stevens, Tillett, Federica, Rota, Nuasala, Edwards, Bruce, Page, Poko, and on the bench, Manzelman, Scanlon, Arakua, and Kira Dibb. Yeah,
mate. As I said before, Corby Baxter makes a return from COVID, sliding straight into that full ball. Bridie Parker moving to the wing. Mate, for me, Raceline McGregor will be her first run of the season. She played her first game for a long time, coming back from injury in that All-Stars game, and only got a couple of minutes. So look for a bit more involvement from her this week. No changes to the Knights. Sticking solid to the same 17 that ran out last week. The Knights have been gallant in defeat in the first 2 rounds, but they really need to start getting some results. Look for Crystal Rorter to create a lot more out of dummy half. Starting to find a feed in this Knights outfit. The Roosters, had no right to be in that game with the Titans on the weekend with such ball handling and a ball, and with their star centres in Kelly. I think the Roosters will climb out of the cellar this week and leave the Knights winless. Jay Harris is tipping this as the game of the round for him. I think the next game will be the game of the round.
Yeah, this will be a fantastic watch. We have the Dragons versus the Broncos. It's the second game, and that will be kicking off at 12 p.m. on Sunday as part of an NRLW doubleheader at CommBank Stadium there. And it's, as we said, the Dragons versus the Broncos, top of the table clash. And the Dragons line up with Tongato, Berry, Chapman, McGregor, Bartlett, who we just touched on earlier, is going to be ruled out of this game. Fuimaono, Pearson, Albert, Davis, Apps, Holmes, Bent, and Wheeler. And on the bench, Dodd, Target, Dimmock, and Williams. And for the competition favourites, the Broncos, Upton, Mosby, Turner, Chisolka, Bass, Aiken, Ali Brigginshaw, Millie Boyle, Brown, Lenarduzzi, Harden, Hall, and Sautia. And on the bench for the Broncos, we have Maddock, Phillips, Murdoch, and Hunt.
Yes, Roxy Murdoch, wife of Benny Murdoch Masilla. Yeah, mate, the Dragons welcome back Tale Holmes, Jamie Chapman, and Kezi Apps into the team. The Broncos, unchanged. Top of the table clash between the two form teams. I expect Elsie Albert to try and take the challenge up to Millie Boyle in this one. Millie Boyle has just been so dominant in the first two games, and the Dragons will be looking for one of their two front rowers, and be Albert to take on Millie Boyle. For the Dragons to win, someone's got to limit the meters Millie Boyle makes around that ruck every time she runs the ball. The Broncos spine of Upton, Aiken, Brigginshaw, and Brown, all Queensland Maroons. They just combine so well. They've played together for so long, and I think if the conditions are dry, they'll just dominate and ensure a Broncos victory. As you said, mate, Matty Bartlett won't be taking part in this one. I expect Keely Brown will probably come onto the wing for Matty, but we'll have to wait and see.
Should be a straight swap. Yep. So the final game of the round, kicking off 1:45 p.m. at CommBank Stadium, and this is the Eels' home game against the Titans. And the Eels line up as Vetti Welsh, Navidi, Panatani, Daniels, Horn, Naito Toka, Studden, Cherrington, Maynard, Kelly Signs, Pio Wright, Taufa, and on the bench, Mailangi, Church, Hanisi, and Johnston. And for the Titans, we have Politi, Brown, Peters, Rafstad, Smith, Ormond, Mansell, Griffin, Brayley Nartai, Elliston, Brittany Brayley Nartai, Steph Hancock, Canfield, Tasman Gray, Destiny Brill, and on the bench, Hale, Clark, Power, and Natupuna.
Cracking game of footy this one will be, mate. Both teams playing before their NRL Cup out, so it's a big occasion in the Women's Rugby League. The winner of this will go outright third, possibly second, depending on the for and against and who wins that Broncos Dragon game. So there's a lot on the line here for these two teams. And in a shortened competition, you want to be in those top two, top three to ensure that you're going to be playing semi-finals in a couple of weeks. No changes to the Eels side that was named last week. A forced change with the Titans with Shannon Mato out injured. She got taken off late in that game for the Titans. Jessica Elliston's come in. She's named to start in the front row. The three battles in this game that will determine the result will be the battle of the hookers in Maynard and Brode Nartai. Who gets the better of that one? The battle of the 13s in Samaima Taufa and Destiny Brill. Two very hard-running, compact workhorses at the back there. And the battle of the fullbacks. Bo Vetti Welsh and Ivania Politi. Both, very, very talented. And I also think if it's a dry track, watch for Studden's kicking game to work the Titans around. It's a tough one to pick, but my heart says Titans, so I'm going to stay with the Titans.
Yeah, I'll be back in the Titans as well on this one. Well, don't forget, guys, we have our Wednesday live show tomorrow night as usual, and you won't want to miss this one with our very special guest, Warriors CEO Cameron George, coming on to talk all things Warriors ahead of the round one game against the Dragons on Saturday. Thanks, everyone, for joining us for the NRLW breakdown. We'll be back next Tuesday to bring you the NRLW action from round 3 of the competition.
Absolutely, we will. So, look forward to seeing you all tomorrow night when we have Cam George on the show. And then we'll also be previewing the Warriors' first round game. We'll be going over the team list that was named today. And we'll have a quick look at all the other games of the NRL round coming up this weekend. So, look forward to seeing you all tomorrow night. That'll be 7:30 your time, Wayne, at 8:30 my time.
7:30 Queensland time, 8:30 New South Wales, and
Absolutely.
10:30 New Zealand for you, TK. I see you're still watching, so cheers, mate.
Yeah. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in for another NRLW breakdown, and we'll see you all tomorrow night.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. You guys take care and stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Thanks a lot.